Hi, everybody. It's meteorologist Joe Cioffi here on this Friday night going into the Christmas holiday weekend. Merry Christmas, everybody. I hope everyone had a great week and a great Friday, and now we're getting ready for Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. If you are in the Northeast, you know, it never fails. Start these live streams. I always forget to shut my phone, so give me 1 second here. The world we live in. I get so wrapped up in what I'm doing that I forget to do things. So much of the Northeast is going to have a white Christmas this year. Either snow is going to be on the ground, or a large chunk of the Northeast is going to be getting snow Christmas Eve night into Christmas Day, and a good chunk of the Northeast is getting snow tonight. So it's just about as Christmassy as you can get. Dickens would have been quite proud with what he sees. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump around and we'll look at what's going on at the moment, and then I'm going to switch to the long range, and then we're going to come back and do the short range because the new NAM is coming out, and by the time we can get through the first stuff, enough of the new NAM will be out that we can take a look at the system for Sunday night into Monday, so we can have some brand new weather model guidance on this. But first things first, I want to start with the scale of watches and warnings and advisories that are up all around the country with some winter weather. And this is the National Weather Service. If you go to weather.gov on their homepage, this is the map that comes up. And we have winter storm warnings up tonight for much of northeastern New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, and southwestern Maine. We have winter weather advisories up for the counties bordering Lake Ontario down to southwestern New York and just west of where the warning is. We also have winter weather advisories up for the eastern parts of the Hudson Valley, much of central and southern New England from I-90 south through Connecticut, except the immediate coast. And we have also winter weather advisories up in through Maine. In the meantime, as we look up to the northwest, we've got winter weather advisories and a scattering of winter storm warnings up in parts of Wyoming, into western Nebraska, on up through Montana and Idaho, and parts of west of easternmost Washington and Oregon, and even a small area in north central Oregon with some winter weather advisories up. So lots going on, and I believe this might also be winter weather advisories that are up for parts of Colorado. Let me double check on that because the color looks a little different, and I don't want to miss. I want to make sure I get the information right. So let's see what it actually is. And yep, those are winter weather advisories that are up also for parts of Oklahoma, northwestern Arkansas, and on up into southwestern Missouri, right in through here. And that's part of that frontal wave that's developing and colder air that's getting involved. And of course, some of that colder air is going to get involved here in the eastern part of the U.S. So let's, at this point now, let me get this out of here. And we will bring up the satellite loop. And there you have it. So here we go. This is our eastern satellite loop tonight. Very busy with a lot of moisture that's coming up. Moisture coming out from Texas and in through Oklahoma and Arkansas. There's a frontal boundary with a wave developing on this front down just south of south central Arkansas that's going to be moving east-northeastward. And at the same time, there's a warm front that is extending from there eastward across Virginia and just offshore. So the cold air is lodged up in the northeast. It is pushed down to just north of where I am. Temperatures on Long Island right now and from central New Jersey southward are in the upper 40s to around 50, while temperatures just a handful of miles northwest of here and north on up through upstate New York and into New England are in the 20s and teens, because we have a big high in eastern Canada that's kind of wedging all the cold air down. And what's going to happen is some of that warm air is going to win out tomorrow, then replaced by cold air, and then we get that second low that's going to develop on later Sunday night. That's going to be impacting the Northeast. So let's go to the GFS first. This is the late afternoon run of the GFS that we're going to take a look at before we jump to the NAM. So I want to set the table with regards to where this is going. I am going to address, by the way, in the long range, we're going to talk about the possibilities for later next week, which I know everybody else is talking about it. So, and we've started mentioning it a bit in the last couple of days. The silliness of what some of the models have been showing, and kind of getting a little bit more reasonable on some models and a little less reasonable on others. But no matter, we'll come back to that in just a second. There we go. Just taking a little bit of time to load here. Sometimes when the weather isn't too good in my area, for some reason it affects the wireless signal. So here's the GFS tonight as of 7 o'clock this evening. This is generally where the model has the snow, which matches up pretty well with the radar. Much of this area, of course, in eastern New York, northeastern New York, and Vermont, New Hampshire, and southwestern Maine is under that winter storm warning. There's some ice going on the southern fringe of that. Then you got a big gap, and then you've got this rain. And by the way, for you folks in central Arkansas and through much of the state of Arkansas, which has been bone dry for much of the fall and into the start of the winter season here, you are getting at least some beneficial rain. And of course, on the northwestern edge, where you see the pink area, that is sleet and freezing rain, as that colder air to the north is bleeding down into northwestern Texas and into Oklahoma, and will gradually bleed down into northwestern Arkansas and into parts of southwestern Missouri. So we have a fairly active wave that's developing here. And as we take this along, this first little, the energy that's up in New England is going to move out. The second wave comes up, and you start to see some ice developing over the areas of New Hampshire and Vermont, which are getting the snow right now on the order of several to 6 inches or more. And then they're going to get some ice on top of that. And then as this wave moves northeastward, enough warm air is going to push up to turn that to rain for a little while later this afternoon. The area of cold air starts to spread through the Great Lakes, and then that should change the rain over to snow in parts of Indiana, Ohio. A good chunk of the state of Ohio will go over to snow, as will western New York and northwestern Pennsylvania. Then tomorrow evening, the low rapidly moves up into coastal Maine. The trailing cold front moves through Connecticut, New York City, New Jersey, down into Virginia, and further south into Alabama and Georgia and South Carolina. So then as we move into Sunday, early Sunday morning, 7 a.m., the front is well offshore. You can see some snow here that's back over through Missouri and Iowa as another upper air disturbance. There's an upper trough that's going to be swinging down and around, and that is going to generate a wave that's going to develop just well, actually not just east-northeast of the North Carolina coast, but pretty far offshore relative to the North Carolina coast. But here's that energy swinging out of the Midwest and going into Pennsylvania and West Virginia. This is for Sunday evening, with snow across Indiana and Ohio and on up in through Kentucky and southern Michigan. Should see some snow Christmas Eve in the Detroit area. I know one of you was just asking about that. Now, that low, that coastal low develops, that energy gets transferred over to it. From Philadelphia, I think the white Christmas line is going to lie basically from just west of Philadelphia to over or just north of New York City, and maybe over or just north of Long Island. The models have kind of been vacillating back and forth on this, and it's going to make it for a very tough call for those areas, because if this low develops a little faster, if it's oriented in a slightly different way, it wouldn't take much to bring that white Christmas line a little further south. But the bulk of the Northeast is going to be getting snow Christmas morning. Northern New Jersey, northeastern Pennsylvania, pretty much all of New York State in snow, Massachusetts, Connecticut, on up through Vermont, New Hampshire, and into Maine. And as that low is now southeast of Cape Cod, moves a little further east. If it's raining in Boston, it changes over to snow. So you folks in Boston should see some snow during the afternoon. Actually, sooner than that, probably during the morning, Christmas morning, you'll be changing over from rain to snow as that low intensifies and heads over or just west of Nova Scotia on this track. So you folks in Nova Scotia may see rain, and then that rain changes over to snow as that low deepens further. Going into the long range, I'm going to widen out. Let me just widen out here. I want to be fair to those of you who are watching in the West, because it's Christmas for you too. So let me just go back as soon as the map finishes loading up. I will go back to show you what the weather is in the western U.S. I'm having some issues here with regards to the wireless signal. It's really, really slow trying to get these maps to load up. Come on. They're literally coming in. There's I don't know how many maps in total that there are, but there's a lot. Okay, so we got the first one in there. Come on, hurry. All right, so let's see if we can move this along. Now, in the West right now, with those winter weather advisories up, there's snow up through Oregon, southern Washington. This is going on overnight through Idaho. All of that area that we saw before with the winter weather advisories and the scattering of winter storm warnings, that low drops down into Colorado, and that snow drops into northeastern Colorado. The area generally weakens, but that's part of the energy that's rushing eastward to develop the system in the east. On Sunday night, another system comes into the Pacific Northwest and brings some snow into much of Washington away from the coast, and then back up into Idaho and Montana as we move into the early part of next week. Now, a big high is going to be coming down. You see it there up in northern Minnesota, and we're getting high pressure spreading out. That high gradually moves over the northern Great Lakes, and that's going to create a big dome of cold air in the eastern part of the United States. You see the flow from Florida into Texas. Those are easterly winds. Gulf moisture is being drawn in, and rain breaks out later Wednesday across East Texas and Louisiana and over through Mississippi and into Alabama. Gradually, as energy comes, moves out of the southwest and gets involved, there's going to be yet another strong upper trough swinging out of Canada and dropping into the northern plains. And you can see it here by the curvature of these blue lines measuring the cold air mass. This is bitter cold air that's coming down into the Dakotas. The trough is fairly far to the west, but it's also rather broad. This causes, you see low pressure here in central Alabama with another low developing off North Carolina. Now that's the model's view of it at the moment. This is now, we're into late next week, on a week from today. High pressure is draped around it, cold high in southeastern Canada. This is kind of a classic surface that the Northeast sees with some of the bigger snowfalls and models. The GFS, the European, and the Canadian from time to time, all having this general idea of some kind of storm development in the eastern part of the United States. Now, I will say, if you remember, if you were with me a couple of days ago, we had the model showing this really ridiculous, unreasonable look where it had a 2,500-mile warm front from Colorado to the East Coast. And we said then that was just ridiculous, and you just don't see this stuff like that wasn't real. And you see how the models, as we get closer to the time frame, every time we knock off a day, the models begin to look a little bit more reasonable. And this is what it shows today. Now, I want to point out that even though it does wrap up a storm before everybody gets worked up about this, that we are still, this is 7 to 8 days out. We are still very much in fantasy land, but I want to illustrate to you what is happening in the upper air, because we have the puzzle pieces here. And while this map is loading up, I'm going to pull up the teleconnections, because the teleconnections are in a very interesting place right now with regards to the possibility of something developing of let's call it major proportions. All right. I think it's certainly possible. Hopefully these teleconnections didn't disappear on me, and they didn't. So let me just shrink this up. Now, remember that these things change every single day. Okay. So as the models, change in how they see the atmosphere, the teleconnections are going to adjust. These are based on the ensembles, so that keeps the day-to-day changes perhaps a little less volatile than if we just looked at one particular model run. And this is from earlier today. So look, I want you to look at what's happening here. You have four of the four teleconnection indices all making big moves. All four of them making big moves at the end of December. The PNA, which is the one which is very important, is going from strongly negative to neutral to positive, and it's doing it over a 5 to 6 day period. That's a very, very fast change. So you're basically going from extreme low pressure to extreme high pressure very fast. That that puts the atmosphere in turmoil. The EPO, the Eastern Pacific Oscillation, is going from very negative to neutral to positive, also very fast. And again, right around the 29th, 30th, all these models are doing this. The West Pacific Oscillation, same thing, very negative, rushing back up to neutral. And the NAO, which has not been really that involved in all of this in the last several weeks, is getting involved, and it's going from strongly positive, somewhat positive, not strongly positive, but somewhat positive, to neutral, also right around that time frame. And even though the EPO going positive would suggest that perhaps it would not, the cold air might, the amount of cold air could become an issue, it's not going to if the NAO is going negative. So all of these indices making these big moves together at the end of this month is a storm signal, in my view. We've worked with this on our YouTube videos over the last couple of weeks, and if you think back to December 9th, that was the first snow that fell in my area here, and that coincided with a signal that was given by the PNA and the EPO, with the PNA going strongly positive and the EPO going negative. So we are now in a situation here with all four indices making big moves. So that is supportive of the idea of the possibility of a big system developing somewhere. The other thing I want to show you is we'll go to the jet stream so you can see this in play. And I'm going to emphasize here what the variables are. So we're starting with Saturday, and the vortex is dropped down pretty far to the south here. I'm sorry, I got the wrong date. My mistake. That's at the time in question. Let me go back. We do have a vortex here, but it's up in central Canada. I knew that didn't look right. Big ridge up in the west, up through Alaska. And by the way, if you go to weather.gov at some point and check out Alaska, and at least the other day when I checked it out a couple of days ago, I was jumping around and looking at temperatures during the daytime. I couldn't find anybody that was down below zero. Not only was it that the case, but there were a lot of places up on the North Coast where temperatures were in the mid to upper 20s, and there was quite a bit of snow falling in a lot of different areas as well. So it's very warm in Alaska, obviously with that big upper ridge there. Now we've got the vortex here in Hudson Bay. This is our trough that's going to swing around for Sunday night into Monday. And you can see the negative tilt of the trough that runs from Lake Winnipeg southeastward toward eastern Kentucky and Tennessee. So that's actually a nice little trough that's shifting around and is going to cause that coastal low to eventually intensify into a strong storm as it moves up towards Nova Scotia. You can see it, the concentration of the darker blues over Nova Scotia here by Monday night. Now, what's going to happen is that vortex is going to try and move to the east. And you can see it here. But what is going to occur is part of it is going to reform east of Newfoundland. You see it here. And then you've got this big arm that stretches all the way back almost into Western Canada. Meanwhile, you've got this Pacific jet that's coming in with a little bit of energy pushing in to the southwest. Now, on we go over time. The vortex that's east of Newfoundland just kind of sits there. That's very important. This is what we look at and call a 50-50 low. A low at 50 and 50. When that's present, it forces any energy to its west to try and move more southeastward. And in between, there's a bit of an upper high. So this is at the point where that North Atlantic oscillation is going from positive to neutral. And we're seeing, as a result of that on the surface, this big high building in eastern Canada back to the Great Lakes and back to Lake Winnipeg. That is your cold air, especially down at the surface, puts in place. Now here's the trough, the neck that's swinging out into Western Canada. You see how it drops in and then drops in over the Great Lakes? It's pretty far south. And then starts getting wrapped up. This is a very, very dynamic look to the upper air. You've got a very cold flow that's coming from the Arctic regions down into the United States. There's cold air all over the place. Now, here's the thing. This is how the model sees this trough at this stage of the game. The question is it really going to be there? Or is it going to set up a bit differently? The trough here is pretty broad and comes in, looks like right around 95 west. But we've seen model runs over the last couple of days that have had this trough back at 100 or 105 west. And a lot of the solutions from that was to take a low up the Appalachians and even into the Great Lakes. Or is the trough going to be further east? And in which case, if it winds up being too far to the east, that could wind up suppressing all of this. So the bottom line at this point is that we've got these, as I said, we have these puzzle pieces that are pointing to the possibility of a big event later next week. But we are in no position right now to say whether those puzzle pieces are going to come together to make that event a reality. And by the way, I know everybody was talking about the European today. I'll show it to you. I'll show you what it did. I'll describe to you what it did. I mean, it was just ridiculous. There have been all sorts of weird, these models have been producing all kinds of very, very strange snow maps over the last couple of days with, these sort of biblical amounts. Let me get the European to load here. I'm going to see if I can do something to strengthen my signal. Sometimes I can get lucky. So give me 1 second here. I'm going to try something. Okay, we'll see if that works. Okay, so we got the European. Here's the European's view of the upper trough. And look at that. It's got this, look at this negatively tilted trough that basically runs from southwestern Canada all the way to the east coast. And there's a wrapped up cutoff low at just east of New Jersey. And when we put the surface map on, I'll bring up a surface map. I apologize for the slowness. Okay, I think maybe you see, here's that upper air close up, and there's this cutoff low that forms in this long negatively tilted, it's almost like a giant arm that's coming around. And we'll put up the surface map with this sometime today. This is really annoying. I apologize. Look at this. Look at the storm that it makes because of that long negatively tilted arm. That's an absolute animal that's sitting right along the south shore of Long Island next Sunday. Now, again, that's because the model saw this the way it saw it. There's no way that we know whether this is going to be what the look is going to be like. So here's how we're going to play this out over the next, I would say the next 3 days. We're going to see probably a variety of model solutions. What to look for is, let's see if they start sort of coalescing on one specific solution. The GFS has been very relatively consistent now, and all the models have been showing this for almost 5 days. So you can gain a lot of confidence when you see models in the long range pointing at a storm when it keeps showing it every single run, even if it doesn't necessarily show it to be strong. If it's showing something that's still there, it might show it suppressed, it might show it overdeveloped. It's showing it. We're going to have to now figure out over the next three or 4 days, if the models start coalescing on a much more specific point and a much more specific path in terms of how this is all going to play out. I know so a lot of you are putting up a lot of questions, and I definitely, when we're done, I'm going to come back to you guys, and we're going to go through everything. So let's now, at this point, switch over to the NAM model because we should have enough of it. And stand by. We're going to go to the NAM because now we can go look at the Sunday night system and see if we're seeing any changes in terms of, where the cold air is in all of this. And we'll put up the moisture field. What you see on the NAM, by the way, the NAM model, this is how the NAM sees the radar echoes, as opposed to the GFS, which is actually showing you precip in terms of how much precip is actually falling. And let me just give a great big round of thanks to Levi Cowan, who is always so generous to let me use these maps on a daily basis on tropicaltidbits.com. Great site here, by the way, folks. Very, very useful. Okay, let's roll the NAM. And here we go. So that first area moves through Maine. Here comes that second area with snow on the northwest side. You can see there's snow there maybe for Cynthia Guignautis. Thank you for hitting Super Chat. I did see that come up. And you're maybe some snow for central Indiana there. Low pressure into West Virginia. I'm probably going to see temperatures well into the 50s tomorrow where I am. And the low, then, lovely. I guess, still having some trouble loading here. Okay, so now we're into Saturday night. And the NAM, by the way, is, we're basically moving hour by hour. So it's kind of frustrating because these maps are taking so long to load out the whole run. Here comes your snow with the energy in Nebraska. We're now at 1 a.m. Sunday. Oh, Lord. It's just fighting for this signal. It may actually not be my problem. It could very well be the fact that everybody is getting on here at the same time as the model is coming out and it's slowing things up. And, of course, it's constantly updating so that it's reloading everything. Okay, so now we're at Sunday morning. Snow in northern Missouri, north central Illinois, almost to Chicago, southern Iowa, over into central northern half of Indiana, southern Michigan, into Ohio. So all these areas are going to be putting a little bit of snow on the ground. Low pressure is starting to develop just east of the North Carolina coast. This is at 4 p.m. on Sunday. And you see there's a surface high just north of the St. Lawrence River. So that's trying to wedge down some cold air into the northeast. Now we're into Sunday night, Christmas Eve night, 7 p.m. There's your wave offshore. There's your energy back to the west, snowing in Ohio, Indiana, over through eastern Michigan, into southwestern PA, rain into southern New Jersey, Delaware, and the Washington, D.C. area. The wave is now east of the Delaware coast at 10 p.m. Snows into eastern Pennsylvania, all of Pennsylvania, southwestern New York, and Ohio. And now we're starting to see snow breaking out in northern New Jersey, rain right along the immediate coast, snow in Connecticut and in through Massachusetts. This is at 1 a.m. And the low center is east of the New Jersey coast. There's a little tight circle there, east of New Jersey, south of Long Island. So that is the little wave. And is that as far as we have? 54 hours. That's as far as we have so far at the moment. So you know what? We're going to leave this here. I'm going to come back to you guys. And I'll go through some of your questions. And then we'll kill a little time. And then we'll come back to this and we'll see what it holds for the rest of the overnight Christmas Eve into Christmas Day. I didn't do that on purpose, folks. That's just the way it happened. So let's move this up to the top, and let me shift this over here. Okay, first off, let me just right off the bat, Salem Surveying, Cynthia Guinautas, Adam Fitz. Thank you so much for hitting Super Chat. I really appreciate it greatly, and Merry Christmas to all you and you three, and of course everybody else here. Merry Christmas as well. I just want to type real fast a thank you. And Salem Surveying, thank you so much. And Adam Fitz. Delvin, you're going to maybe get a white Christmas in Boston. I know that'll make you very happy, by the way. Okay. So let's run through some of what you got here. Dark Master wants to know about the European and the big snow totals. Dark Master, the European really had like biblical numbers, and they're ridiculous. They had 36 to 64 inches from central New Jersey into southeastern New York. I mean, come on, that you can't use that. You cannot use that as a forecast tool, because from a forecasting standpoint, I can't go out on the air and say with at all that this is something that's realistic. That's something that makes complete sense. It doesn't. Okay, it's unreasonable. And by the way, it's you can't forecast events like that. That just you can't. You want to take something like that as an idea that the model's producing a big storm. I think that's really the takeaway. Patricia Patrulak, you want to see snow in Scranton? I think you're going to see some there, and you might get maybe some scatterings of up to a couple of inches. Could be, which will be enough for a white Christmas. And let's see. I just want to see. I know a lot of you are rooting for the white Christmas. Tom Adams, rain to snow, but will Boston get that critical 1 inch? I think you will. I do. I think you'll tap some of the intensification of that low as it goes by. So you are going to see. I think you're going to see it. Pete Frizella, a storm for next week for snow in Detroit. I think it's certainly possible. But again, a lot of variability is still on the table. So Kathy Albano, a lot of variability as far as snow for Michigan. Delvin is quoting the Times. It's in the UK, Europe, Newfoundland, and Canada. Yes, it is a late night because I didn't do the 6 o'clock. That was my day off today, so I took the day off, and I was. That's why I moved it to 9 o'clock, so we were able to at least see the new NAM. Cliff Newton, thank you for the kind words. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you. More questions. Franklin Taylor from Arkansas, glad for the rain here. No confidence in the rain to snow mix forecasted for me in my area. Only a half an inch of snow here. I am just outside of the winter weather advisory. Well, maybe you might get a little bit more before it's all said and done. 2009, when the observation was done for it to count as a white Christmas, the very definition, Boston had 4 inches on the ground. I don't know who came up with the rule about, what defines a white Christmas and what doesn't. Apparently, the standard rule is you got to have at least an inch of snow on the ground, and it has to be on the ground before 7 a.m. I guess that's because, Santa Claus had to have snow on the ground during the night. I kind of think in my own mind, at least in my own heart, if it snows anytime during Christmas Day, whether there's snow on the ground or not, if it snows anytime during the day itself, in my view, in how I see the world, that should mean a white Christmas. Tam Lewis, any chance do I see a major storm for next weekend? Well, as we just talked about it, I think the puzzle pieces are there. Whether they come together or not remain to be seen. And by the way, through all of this, behind that is that bitter cold air. So let's remember that we are going to see some very, very cold temperatures spreading across much of the eastern half of the United States, but particularly into the Midwest, into the Northeast, the Mid-Atlantic, down into the Tennessee Valley, the Ohio Valley, back up into the northern plains. We're going to see some bitter cold air and some very extreme temperatures. In some places are going to see minus 20 to minus 30 when this is all said and done. And we're in a very, very cold pattern for the next 2 weeks. No sign of that breaking down anytime soon. Let's see. Anthony Orr, Weather Service said if an area gets 6 inches of snow, with the snow beginning at 4 p.m. and ending at 10 Christmas evening, for example, it wouldn't count. Yeah, you know what? They can say it doesn't count. For me, it counts. Okay, for me, it counts. Asim wants snow in Washington, D.C. I think it's going to be a really tough sell for you guys. I don't think you're going to see it. Sandra Thomas, welcome. I think you're new to the chat screen. Thank you for being here. And you have getting good weather down here in the South. But I have seen -1 down to -1 in 1985. Be curious, where are you in the South? Let's see. Even 34 inches at 7:01 doesn't help if only 2. I know. See, you know what? What matters is what's in your own head. Okay, if you remember it, I can remember. I can remember a number of Christmases up where I am where we had snow showers the night before or overnight that we woke up to a coating on the ground, and enough where all the grass was covered. Maybe it was about a half an inch or a quarter of an inch or a half an inch, but it made everything look nice. So in my head and in my heart, that was a white Christmas. The EPO going positive and the cold is already locked in. It appears it would be locked in cold would offset with a positive EPO. Yes, that's correct. And by the way, the EPO going positive, the cold air is already here. The question is whether the EPO stays positive or goes back negative again. That could be just a temporary trip up into positive territory. And then, the chess pieces start moving around again, and we could be in for a reload. At some point, we do have to reload the atmosphere in terms of whatever pattern you're in. The atmosphere eventually runs out of cold air in a sense, and it has to reload. So that's when you might see the pattern take a bit of a break, but that break may not come for a while. I'm going down through all your comments, and then I'm going to go back. We're going to go look at the rest of the NAM. Okay, let's see. I see, we got a lot of folks on tonight too. So those of you who are new, welcome to my YouTube channel. If you are new, hit the subscribe button and become a regular and join the conversation that gets pretty active from time to time. Let's see. Okay, so I got to the bottom of the of the list. Delvin 4519 has now informed me that the NAM is out far enough, so let's go back to La NAM. All right, so stand by, everybody here. Let me bring up the. Let me shrink me. We'll shrink me. We'll bring the NAM up. And what I'm hoping is, at least for me. Now I'm going to get to see this because I'm going to be going up to Connecticut and that's going to at least put me right in a good zone. I'll be north of Route 84 and in Litchfield County, and that's going to be good for me. Okay, so here we go. By the way, at this point, the NAM actually does have it with the snow arriving in Boston as snow, precipitation arriving in Boston as snow, which is very interesting. Now we'll go jump over. This is going to give us 4 a.m. And there's your low center. Now it's just east of the northern New Jersey coast. Rain right along the immediate coast, snowing inland throughout much of North Jersey, northeastern Pennsylvania. You were asking about Scranton before. This does pretty well, and through much of almost all of New York State, except probably right down near the coast, near southern Westchester County in New York City. And then the low pulls away to Nantucket. You can see this kind of a back edge burst of heavy snow here in western Connecticut and over Long Island, or at least touching Long Island. So this is, you can see where the fine. It just happens that where I am, there's kind of this fine line as far as the precip is concerned, and then the low intensifies quite strongly once it goes east of Boston. So I'm going to put up the snow map. We're going to get very tight. The low goes west of Nova Scotia, west of Halifax anyway, and then on up, heading on its way toward Newfoundland. Now this is at Christmas night, on Monday night. So we'll look at the total snowfall based on the 10-to-1 ratio. We will also, I'll put the tight map on. All right, Delvin, you should be happy with this. Okay, I looked at it real fast, so now we're bringing up the tight map. So for you folks in Boston, you're going to have your white Christmas with some snow on the ground. It looks like at least a couple of inches for Boston on that white. That whitish shading is actually, if you look at the scale here, this is the total map. So, and this, by the way, includes, especially for New England, this is going to include whatever's falling tonight. And for the overnight, that's just about done. So a lot of this is going to be new snow here as we go into Sunday night into Monday morning. Looks like the NAM is a little bit further south with the southern edge of measurable to just about New York City, south of Route 78, and then you start to get into maybe a couple of inches. That lightish blue area, almost whitish blue, that's 3 inches for the northwestern counties of New Jersey into the Hudson Valley. It looks like maybe the 1-inch line is down at the southern Westchester County. And then of all of Connecticut, you get into Massachusetts, you start seeing numbers like 6, 7, 8 inches. And that 8-inch line is just west of Boston itself. So some heavier snow is not that far away. And of course, you can see the snows for upstate New York, and that's White Christmas land. Now, the total snow falls back through Ohio, substantial in northwestern Ohio, up back over into much of the northern half of Indiana. I'll bring up the Midwest map. Now I'll go back to the wider map so we can cover those of you who are living elsewhere in terms of your total snowfall as it loads. So this is snow that falls, this is total over the next, for tomorrow, Sunday, and Monday, okay? And you can see that swath that comes out for Sunday night, that sets up the Sunday night system that comes out during Saturday into Saturday night and early Sunday. General 1 to 3 inch snowfall here. You've got some decent amounts back through, even into central Indiana, some 6, 7 inch amounts. Let's, for white Christmas lovers, keep your fingers crossed. But that's a pretty good chunk of the Midwest and Northeast that's actually going to be seeing snow falling over tomorrow, Sunday, and Monday. And if we go to the 24-hour snowfall map, you know what? The 24-hour snowfall map I don't think is available for the NAM. It's available for the GFS, but not for the NAM model. So there you have it, folks. It's not looking too shabby. for white Christmas prospects. I'm going to be, nail biting for New York City and Long Island. Philadelphia, maybe just west of Philadelphia, gets the white Christmas. We'll see. Remember, even though we are now 48 hours from the start of all this, I just want to harken back to last Friday, okay, where we basically saw the models change inside 24 hours and wound up with a few inches, which is nice, and maybe we'll be able to do that again for those areas that are right in that, right where the line is, just west of Philadelphia to New York City to over Long Island. From there north and west, it looks like the white Christmas is pretty much either a good bet or a lock. And from there south, you're going to have a lot of things happen, a bigger change in the models. Subtle change puts New York City and Philadelphia in play. A bigger change might push it a little bit further south into central New Jersey and maybe even down into northern Delaware. But I think that might be asking a lot. But there's still room for these models to maneuver just a bit. And remember, by the way, this is the NAM. We don't necessarily know that the NAM is right. I would be waiting. The RGEM is not out yet, and even if it were, it's not in range yet. It will only take us to Sunday evening. So we need the RGEM tomorrow. The first run of the RGEM tomorrow's daytime run will put us in through the overnight into Monday morning. And I love the RGEM in the short term. It does really, really well in cases like this. So maybe the RGEM will offer us something a bit different. I did see just someone ask about the NAM having, Tom Adams, yes, does the NAM have a cold bias? I don't think it does. I think the NAM model sometimes tends to have a bit of a warm bias, and it also tends to sometimes, under certain circumstances, not all, kind of be a little bit overzealous when it comes to precipitation. But I have been working with the NAM over the last couple of weeks, and I've noticed that it hasn't done too badly. It's by no means, it has by no means been perfect, but it hasn't worked too bad. It hasn't been that bad. Ryan Rourke, does that the NAM show snow for Baltimore? I think it kind of had you on the edge of a little bit of snow. I'll just tell you where a lot of times in these snow maps where you see the darkest blue, which would indicate trace amounts or a couple of tenths, oftentimes that doesn't wind up sticking. So you kind of have to get into that half an inch to an inch where you start seeing, the whitening of the ground or the potential for that to happen. So we're going to be having to look at a lot, including surface temperatures, in terms of how this is all going to play. According to the NAM, no, that's not exactly what the NAM showed for Boston. One of the things you have to be careful of is that, you could still have the NAM sometimes right on that borderline where it's showing rain, but that could be the predominant precipitation, but for the period, but it may not be the precipitation for the whole period. Okay, those are the radar echoes, so it is showing some rain, but it did also show some snow. So we have to, kind of go back and forth and see how it goes. I think that once the low goes by, you'll get the cold air to come in and get a burst. At least that's what the NAM is indicating, in my view, in terms of how this will all play out. Any chance for a white Christmas in Boone, North Carolina with elevation? I don't think you're going to have I didn't happen to notice whether there was going to be any moisture of consequence down that. Actually, there's like a little sliver that goes into western North Carolina. So dice roll. Ed Fired FD Maryland. So I'm guessing that's Ed Fire Department Maryland. Good. Welcome aboard. I think this might be your first time here too. The 40-70 benchmark. Okay, what does that mean? 40 and 70 is latitude, longitude. 40 degrees north, 70 degrees west. The snow events in the Northeast, particularly snow events that impact Philadelphia, New York City, and Boston. The low centers tend to tend to cluster around that 40 degrees north, 70 degrees west mark. So the weather people call that the benchmark to watch to see when weather models take surface lows out to 40 and 70. In general, lows that track west and north of 40 and 70 oftentimes bring rain along the immediate coast with heavier snows inland, and lows that go east of 40 and 70 might mean for storms that bring heavy snow to the coast, but then the western edge of the snow, you wouldn't have to go that far inland where amounts decrease pretty rapidly and there's no snow. Situations where, for example, northwestern New Jersey gets very little, and Long Island winds up getting, and southeastern New England wind up getting hit with snow on the order of a couple of feet. I've been in situations here over the years where lows that have gone just east of the benchmark have produced 1 to 2 feet of snow over Long Island, a couple of inches in New York City, and nothing when you get to the George Washington Bridge. The half blizzard of 2015 is a beautiful example of that because, from western Long Island, there was a foot. I'm in central Long Island. From me east, it was 2 feet. Go into Queens and head toward Manhattan, there was a handful of inches, and then go on the west side of it, Manhattan, while all this was going on, they had flurries with the moon visible. I mean, that's how tight it was. So, that 40-70 benchmark is generally used as a place where, if storms that tend to cluster within about 60 miles or so of that usually produce big snows for the big cities, Philadelphia, New York City, and Boston. But it's not the only way. Okay, there's a number of studies, you could probably find them on the internet, on Google, of that looked at storm tracks in what's known as the box. The box is 35 degrees north, 70 degrees west to 40 degrees north, right in there. We used to call that the box. In fact, one of my professors in college, Professor Jerome Spar at CCNY, that was his work. He did the research on what was called the box, and storms that tracked inside the box were storms that produced snows in the New York, New Jersey, Long Island area, and depending on where they were in the box, would sometimes determine how much snow would have fallen. And yes, Danilo, why don't we look at the 3-kilometer NAM? Thank you for suggesting that. Let's look at the 3-kilometer NAM. That's a NAM variation. It's a very, very tight grid, and it might be useful here because of the fact that a lot of what's developing here looks almost convective in nature to some degree, and the 3-kilometer NAM might be a bit better with that. I'm speculating here openly. I don't know for sure if that's going to be the case, but why don't we take a look? Okay, let's go to the 3-kilometer NAM. We'll start with the 3-kilometer NAM snow map and see what it came up with. So the 3-kilometer NAM is actually showing, in some cases, it looks like the line of measurable snow is actually a little bit further south than the standard 12-kilometer NAM model, but it is also showing lesser amounts in Massachusetts and Connecticut, although everybody seems to get at least several inches. And that's not out far enough. Maybe that's why it's showing lesser amounts. Okay, let's try it again. Move along. We don't have the 3-kilometer NAM out far enough. It's only out to 56 hours. So why don't we look at the surface then? Maybe by the time it's done, it will load. I would think the 3-kilometer should have been done by now. I did notice that in the prior run, the 3-kilometer NAM had a colder look to it. Looks like it has snow for the immediate coast, Long Island. A little bit of a mix, but you look at that band of heavy snow that it's got in eastern Pennsylvania. That's very interesting. All the way down to Philadelphia, it seems that it has that. Maybe if I get a little tighter, we can see that a bit better. Everybody's jumping. This is really hilarious because everybody wants a white Christmas. All the weather folks must be on Levi's site right now, killing it here. Look at that big band of convective heavy snow across eastern Pennsylvania, northern New Jersey. Looks like it gets down almost to New York City. All of Connecticut in snow. Long Island is in rain. Central and South Jersey in rain. And the maps are loading. So hopefully we can see the rest of this. I really would like to see the rest of it. Oh, look at that. Wow, that's interesting. It's almost unrealistic that it has that. That's almost like a convective arm that it's showing. I don't know. That could be a feedback error. I'm going to be really, I'd be really cautious of this. That's weird, and it extends all the way up into eastern New York. That's bizarre. Okay, let's put the snow map up. We should maybe get the snow. The snow totals may or may not be there. I don't know. Why don't I move me so I can see the menu better? The tool I'm using here, folks, the reason why sometimes I have problems with it is because you're seeing it on the screen there, the menu that I have to pick from. I see it on a separate menu on the side that I'm actually interacting with. It's like really, 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 really small. I mean, minuscule, okay? All right, so this is now out to, I'm going to let it load. It doesn't have it. I may not have enough of this. Yeah, the last 4 hours of the 3-kilometer NAM are not out yet, so we can't see what that additional snow adds to the equation. My luck. We're going to have to live in mystery here, okay? So let me come back to you guys. We've gone 56 minutes here. That's I think my record is a full hour. Let me bring you back. Let me get a few more of the comments. Scott Olson, the slush might be knee deep. Yeah, but you know what? If it's knee deep and it's an inch deep, it's a white Christmas. So, it was just technical. Merry Christmas to you, Tom Adams. Thank you. Yes, Pandaz. If you saw what the NAM did, it brings most of Ohio into a white Christmas. Cynthia Guignautis, you're in Central PA. Yeah, well, he may have seen the 3-kilometer NAM. The 3-kilometer NAM was like that even on the prior run. I find that model, that particular variation of the NAM, it's a hit or miss. It works. It'll work, and then the next time you use it, it doesn't work. And then the time you don't use it, you go back and look at it afterward, and you find out that it has worked. So you know what? We've looked at it, and I looked at it earlier today, so we're going to keep looking at it, and we'll go back and forth on this, and we'll see how it sets up. And I know, Delvin, yes, the Euro's biblical snow amounts for Boston. I think if somebody were to lay you a bet that amount would come up, that amount's going to verify, I would take the other side of that bet any day, because the odds of anything even close to that being right are just infinitesimal. It's huge. You might as well you might as well try to hit Powerball. Cynthia wants, does the HRRR work during the winter, or is it just for summer convention? I have to tell you, quite honestly, the HRRR model has been nothing short of awful. It was awful for here anyway, for where I am. I don't know how it's worked elsewhere, but for my area, it has been just absolutely awful. It was through the summer, through the fall, and in the snow events that we had here through the last couple of weeks, those 3 snow events that we had in 6 days, it was terrible through that. I am really not, I'm not going to want to look at it. And you know what I just realized too? You know what we could look at? Let me see if I can do this. But there's a tool that works sometimes. Every model we have works sometimes. Let me see if I can get this to work. If you guys can bear with me, there is a model called the SREF, and it was created by Stony Brook University. I am going to actually, I will put the link to this, okay, and you guys can play with it for your own area. The SREF sometimes can give you good clues as to what may happen, especially the trends in the SREF. But let me see if I can bring it up on the screen, because if we can, we can have a little fun with this. So hang on, here we go. I'm going to try. Let's see. I'm going to try. It's going to load. It may take a little while to load up. Okay, it did load up. All right, so what this is, I know this looks kind of weird, but these are a number of different models, and these are different plots. And if you look on the top, we can have also total snow. What I'm going to have to do, let me see if I can get the interactive part of the screen working. And I can. So the only problem is I cannot set the range. I need the map that I use. There's a map that goes with this. I'm going to have to play with it. Let me bear with me, everybody. I got to play with the size of the map. There's an interactive map on the bottom that if let's see if that does anything. It may or may not. Yeah, it's okay. You know what I'm going to do? What I will do is I'll punch it up off screen. Oh, I got it. Great. Okay, so I'm going to switch it over to total snow. Okay. Then I'm going to go to the interactive map, and we're going to get, it's a little out of control. All right. So I got to maneuver this. Okay. A little tighter. A little tighter. I'm almost there, folks. This could be exciting. If I got to be careful. Okay, awesome. All right, so here's the SREF. If you look on the side of the scale, these are different model plots of what these different models see in terms of snow. Now, it happens that when they ran this, so this is now for Sunday night into Monday morning, half an inch, 1 inch, 1.5, 2 inches. So one of those model members, this is for iSlip that I put up, by the way. So I put up, one of the model members gives 1.5 inches. If you look at the black line, that's the mean that it produces. And unfortunately, I'm not going to, there it is. So it actually, for iSlip, it shows 1/10 of an inch of snow. Okay. So why don't we now move to further north? Let's see if we can gives us White Plains. And even for White Plains, it doesn't give very much. Now, I will just point out that there are about 20 or more different models. They don't have 20 plots here. So it's quite possible that some of these other models just weren't run. Poughkeepsie, and not all these models work well with snow. Now, see, for Poughkeepsie, the mean is a little closer to 1/2 inch. This seems a little bit unrealistic, but I'm going to look at the SREF over the next day or two to see how it plays out. But this is something I'm going to keep here on my board, because if we have it does work from time to time. It can be very useful. Sometimes it's a little off the wall. Sometimes it isn't. And it seems to have captured. See, that's what it looks like on the interactive map on the bottom. So I'm going to just shrink it away and keep it for posterity, so that next time around we'll have it here for everybody and we'll go through it. So I didn't even know about. I completely forgot about the SREF. I wasn't on the total snow tab. Okay. Thanks for telling me that. I appreciate that, Tim. Hang on one second. Let's try it again. You know, when I work in TV, I don't have to do all this technical stuff, the switching, switching sources and cameras. So I'm doing that and being talent at the same time. It's just not easy. All right, let me bring up my interactive board. I gave hourly snow. Thank you for pointing that out. Now we got the total snow. Oh, amen. Tim, you are a lifesaver. I appreciate it very much. Okay. So let me widen this up. Okay, so there we are now showing you, this is Poughkeepsie. It still seems a little bit odd, but notice that there are some model members that give 2.5 inches, 1.5 inches or better. The mean is, I'm going to see if I can hit that little button. You can see the mean kind of pops up at 0.70. Why don't I try somebody in Connecticut? Why don't we go to Hartford? Yeah, Hartford only 1/2 inch. Again, there's over 20 or so members here, so we don't have all of them. We've got one in Hartford that gives almost 4 inches. Why don't we look at Boston? It does. The SREF means do give over 1 inch in Boston. So for Boston, you get a white Christmas if this is right. And I'm not sure where I am at south and west of Boston. The mean is a little over 1 inch there. North and east of Boston, approaching 1.5 inches. Northwestern Massachusetts, over 2 inches. You see how there's more model members here that are producing snow, that produced a result of some kind. And then again, going down toward Islip. Let me go back to Islip. And, not even 1/2 inch. So, okay, so you get the idea. So tomorrow I'll do the SREF again, and we'll probably have maybe a little bit more to work with. But certainly when we get another bigger event, the SREF will come in handy, and I will definitely be using that. Okay, so let me just bring me back one more time. The NAM 3 kilometers. Delvin, thank you. All right, hang on, folks. We're going back and forth. Okay, you know what? While this is going on, I'm gonna run a quick commercial break here. So if you see something, just relax. You'll come in right back. By the way, if you ever do if they ever do run a midstream ad, just remember you can. Usually with some of the ones, if they run long ones, like somebody was pointing out the other night that they ran like a 30-minute commercial popped up. Usually in the lower corner, it'll tell you, you can, at your option, jump out of it. So now we'll see what the total snowfall is. All right, bring that map to the top, Joseph. Okay, so here's your 3 kilometer NAM total snowfall. So look how far much further that convective band must be, what does it. And notice big heavy amounts just west of Boston through much of Massachusetts, but even the 3 kilometer NAM has a few inches right in Boston itself. It gives a couple, even 1 inch or 2, maybe down in New York City and over Long Island, with some 3 and 4 inch amounts in Northwest New Jersey and some scatterings there, you can see a little pinkish areas in parts of eastern Pennsylvania, but certainly at least a few inches there and into the Hudson Valley. Big stripe of snow throughout much of central and northern Ohio, central and northern Indiana to southern Michigan, much of Pennsylvania getting snow throughout all of this on the 3 kilometer NAM. So we're good. I'm not going to wait for the new GFS to come out. We're coming up on an hour and 10 minutes here. We've had a very long show tonight, and I've enjoyed every minute of it. I hope you have. So let me bring myself back so I can say my goodbyes. Those of you who are regular here, thank you so much for being here through all these many months. And if you decide to take a break over the weekend, by all means, and have a great Christmas holiday. Merry Christmas to all of you. I hope that it is a healthy and happy one. Safe travels to wherever you may be going, or perhaps you have folks coming to you. So absolutely safe travels in either direction, especially if you're having to travel in snow. If you are planning to ski, you got the whole Northeast to choose from, because ski conditions are going to be great all through next week and beyond, with the cold weather and all the deep snow cover that we're seeing. And I hope Santa leaves the present that you want under the tree. Okay. I will be, we'll do this again tomorrow. Sunday, I don't know. I'll try to sneak. If I do something on Sunday, I'm not going to guarantee it. If I do something on Sunday, it'll probably be earlier in the day, because as we go into later in the day and into Christmas Eve and dinner time and family gathers, I think it's going to be time to just take a break. And Monday might wind up being a bit tough, but. Excuse me. We'll give it a whirl on Monday if I can do it. We'll try and get one on. So, but I'll let you know tomorrow what the potential schedule is going to be. All right, folks. You can always check out the latest. There will be website posts on meteorologistjoecioffi.com, so you can check that out. Facebook page is Meteorologist Joe Cioffi. Links are on the YouTube channel on the top of the banner. On the channel page, you can go to Facebook, Google+, Twitter, or my website. Merry Christmas! Thank you again for all of you who have hit Super Chat tonight. We'll see you tomorrow.